Hi guys, I'm Amy from Amy's Cut Above Creations, and I'm going to be showing you how I made these two heart puzzle molds using Alumilite's amazing mold maker. The first thing you're going to need is something to make a mold of. And since I've been obsessed with making puzzles lately, I went for a heart puzzle. I've been designing my puzzles on the Procreate app on my iPad, and since I don't have a laser cutter, I have my friend Sparkle and Ice over on Etsy cut out my puzzles for me. The biggest part about making this mold is making the mold box, and some of the supplies we're going to need for that is some foam board you can get right at the dollar store, an X-Acto knife, maybe a marker, and most importantly, your amazing mold maker. And hot glue, lots and lots of hot glue. There are many different ways to glue down your blank or your puzzle in this case. I use contact paper, transfer paper, the same stuff you'd use for your Cricut. One of the hardest parts about making your mold box is deciding the placement of your pieces. I go for about 1/4 of an inch between each piece and around the border. So you want enough space, but not too much blank space where you're wasting the silicone. I went back and forth a lot about where I wanted to place my puzzle pieces in the box. I struggled with wanting the puzzle to look like it should when it's done, but just a little spaced out, or just placing them the best way they're going to fit. In the end, I ended up rotating the whole thing and placing everything from the corner out. But depending on what mold you're making, you can place it however you want. Once I had the placement down, I was able to figure out how much of that extra poster board I would be able to cut off. Like I said, you don't want a lot of extra space because you end up using silicone you could have saved for another project. Now, even though I'm using a ruler and a cutting mat, this does not have to be exact. That's what's so great about making your own mold. They don't have to be perfect. Plus, I can use some of the cut-off strips for the sides of the mold box. To make the sides of my mold box, I used up some of the scrap foam board I had laying around. I wanted my mold to be about 1/2 inch thick, so I cut these side pieces between 1/2 inch and 3/4 of an inch. With all my side pieces cut and ready to go, it's time to address how I'm going to attach these puzzle pieces to the mold box. My favorite way to do this is by using contact paper or transfer tape. When I started making molds, I would use hot glue to glue my pieces down, but I found that the silicone actually got up under my puzzle pieces and it caused for a lot more cleanup in the end. I still get a little bit of that when I use the contact paper, but it is so much less. And everyone's preferences are going to be a little bit different on how to do this. But there's really not a wrong way to do this as long as your pieces stay down. I use a little bit of tape or some hot glue to stick that contact paper down because you want the sticky side up. I don't always attach the puzzle pieces to the contact paper before building the whole mold box, but it really works either way, before or after. Doing it like this gave me a little extra space to get my fingers in there and make sure everything was secure. With all that set up, it's time to add the sides of the mold box. This is where all that hot glue comes into play. The goal here is to attach the sides and prevent any leaks. You want to make sure that you're sealing any gaps, where the sides are attaching to the bottom, plus any corners. I tend to go back and add a little bit of extra hot glue just to make sure that there won't be any leaks. When I ordered my puzzle, I also ordered a frame or its own personal mold box for the very first time. This is going to allow me to do the rice trick without having all the rice stick to the contact paper. And since the acrylic frame and my poster board mold box are similar sizes, I'm going to go with the measurements I get for the acrylic one for both. If you don't know what the rice trick is, it's simply adding rice to your mold box and then measuring that rice to see how much volume of silicone you're going to need for your mold. It's a lot easier and sometimes faster than doing the math to figure out how much silicone you're going to need, although it can be a little messy. I was short a little bit of rice for my mold, so even though this says 12, I am going to go with about 13 or 14 ounces of silicone. It's finally time to bust out the amazing mold maker. I ended up going with about 14 ounces of the amazing mold maker, so I used 7 ounces of each part and mixed until it was a uniform color. This has got to be my favorite part. There's just something about seeing that silicone flow over all of those puzzle pieces. I know you can't see the cup right now, but I'm holding it high up above my camera so the silicone flows down in a thin stream. This can help pop any of those larger bubbles that you may have created when you were stirring. I also try to pour it from one side and then slowly move my way over if I need to. This helps prevent air getting trapped around your puzzle pieces and creating more bubbles. It may look like I'm pouring this quickly, but I did speed up the video so you'd be able to see the flow of the silicone. For the second heart mold, I mixed up another batch of Amazing Mold Maker. Since there's only about 6 to 8 minutes of work time for this product, I did not want to mix up a big batch and not have enough time to pour it all. The pouring process was the same for this heart, except I wasn't as worried about leaks for this one. Fortunately, I didn't have any leaks with either mold. These molds will be set in 30 minutes, but fully cured in 24 hours. I usually wait until the next day to pull these new molds out of their mold boxes. Depending on what you're making a mold of, sometimes the demolding process can be a little bit more challenging. Luckily, these didn't give me much trouble at all. Most times when I make a mold box out of poster board, I end up having to rip off a side just to be able to get the new mold out of the box. But I didn't have to do that here. And in theory, I should be able to use this mold box again. Although the heart-shaped one is cuter, so I will probably use that more often. One issue I did have with my poster board mold was that the silicone got under the contact paper on the one side. This really doesn't affect the mold, and it's a quick fix. I got one of these little cuticle cutter tools from the dollar store, and I just run that along the edge where that overflow is, and it cuts it right off. And here they are, 2 completed heart puzzle molds. If you make something similar, I'd love to see it. You can tag me at Amy's A Cut Above.